Welcome. So glad to see you here this morning. We always appreciate your support and want to get our message out to you and hear what your questions are. So thank you for coming. And thank you to those who are joining us on the webinar also. Your presence is just as important and as is your questions. So as are your questions. So thank you again. I do want to tell you that I am standing in for Amanda, and yes, I am standing. I am Jean McElroy, and I am the communications coordinator, and I will be giving you some updates on some of our great events that are coming up. But first, I'm going to just tell you some instructions that I trust that you will be able to remember till the end. So I'm going to get them over with now, and that's about the Q&A. If you have to take notes, go ahead. When we do the Q&A at the end, please remember that you must be speaking into a mic or we cannot hear you, and certainly the people on the webinar can't hear you, and it will not be recorded. So please remember that. We will have two people passing mics at the end, and if you'll just kindly wait till we get it to you, that would be much appreciated. And then the other comment is the webinar people will get an opportunity to join in and write their questions, but that will not be turned on until our Q&A segment. So don't panic, it will be available and it will be obvious on your screen. Okay, remember that? Okay, good, thank you. All right, first of all, we have a blood drive coming up. Let me start the slides here. Oops, I'm supposed to point that way. How's that? We have a blood drive coming up, and it is on Friday, this Friday. The blood mobile will be out here in the parking lot, and it will be open from 9 to noon. You can go to our website, cpinesliving.com/blood drive, and they will ask you for your zip code. And when you put that in, you just do a search, and it will bring up I think there's 3 now in our zip code. Choose Sea Pines, and then it will take you to a list where you can actually make an appointment if you want a specific time. But you are welcome to just walk in. So if you're going in or out of the community and you have an opportunity, please do take time to roll up your sleeve and give some blood. And that will be from 9 to 12 this Friday. We have our artists that are going to give a reception on the 8th. That will be next Wednesday. And I hope that you will come and show your support. You will be amazed at the talent that you see hanging on these walls, and you might find just the piece that you need for that little vacant wall space. So you will have the opportunity also to purchase. And if you're kind of sitting on the fence about that, there will be wine. So please join us. The next thing, we have 2 board meetings in May. The ASPO board meeting is on the 16th. That's a Thursday at 9 o'clock. That's the usual time. I know we've had some special ones and it seems like we're all messed up, but May is actually right now is normal. So the ASPO meeting will be on the 16th at 9 a.m. and the CSA meeting will be on the 21st, Tuesday at 3 p.m., both here at the community center. We have a wellness bus that is going to be here in the parking lot. You can come and get some basic blood pressure kinds of things taken. And that is on the 23rd from, I gotta read this one, from 9 to 1. So stop in, again, no appointment is needed. Just come stop in and get a little free evaluation. We also finally, after many phone calls, wondering where our shredding event is, it is actually scheduled now. We've had quite a time getting somebody on the calendar, but we have a different time. So be aware that we're starting at 8 and ending at 11. So that will be on the 30th, May 30th, from 8 to 11, a little different time frame, so be aware of that. And again, out in the parking lot, you can, it's not for commercial use, but you can bring boxes of your papers. They can be stapled, they can be clipped, but they can't be in binders. So if you have them in binders, they need to come out of that. But don't try to break your fingernails in getting those paper clips and staples out. I would take that very seriously. And as we are moving through the program, I am very, very delighted to introduce to you Dick, and he is the chairman, Dick Matthews. He is, I know him forever, so, but Dick Matthews is going to be coming up and talking about our land use management program. And it's a very exciting program and very necessary. And so, Dick.
Morning. Thank you all. Let me see if I can. There we go. Yes, I have a delightful task this morning to introduce our new land use monitor. And to do that, I just want to provide a sort of a brief history as to how we got here, and more importantly, how Portia got here. Gosh, let's just say roughly 2 years ago, Charlie Miner formed a task force with me as the liaison, working with at that time Dave Monitor, who was Dave Riss, the land use monitor. And the original task force included Dan Aguazo, Alex Cruden, and Pete Varro. And we spent, I don't know, let's just say 3 or 4 months trying to get our arms around exactly the circumstance here in Sea Pines with problem properties. Unfortunately, it's a significant issue, and there are a number of problem properties. But the one that really drove us was 40 Sand Fiddler. And we sort of use that as our roadmap, if you will, that if we can fix this, we can fix anything. And just as a quick reminder, this is 40 Sand Fiddler as it used to be. Right here in the heart of Sea Pines, our beautiful community was this place. What we're not showing you, fortunately, are the rats and the insects and everything else that was part of it. So that became our driving focus. If we can fix this, we'll be doing the community a real service. So as a result of working on that, we prepared a very comprehensive report for initially the ASPO board. More about that in just a moment. And from that, a committee was formed. From that committee, it became a joint committee with CSA. And the committee now includes, obviously, the original task force members, as well as Lee Stevens, Kathy Rash, and recently Chuck Coulter joined us. The key point here is, though, the committee was formed. There are lots of committees, but Charlie generally and Dave Borghese specifically, as the finance chair, had the foresight to realize we're going to need some money to do our job. So I just wanted to make sure everybody is aware of that. And so the committee got to work. We focused on 40 Sand Fiddler, as I said, and we decided to try to take the effort a little bit further than Sea Pines. We're not the only gated community with problem properties. So we tried to form a little organization, go to the town of Hilton Head, and the short version of the story is, frankly, the town made it clear that we're on our own, irrespective of the fact that we all pay taxes for public safety and security to the town. It's our problem, and they made it clear that it's our problem. So we continued to work and realize through now, this is, let's just say roughly 18 months in, we've got 3 significant challenges. The first one is productivity. This is really a job for multiple people. The real world is we're lucky to have one full-time person. So how do we stretch that productivity? We need every single tech tool available that's out there. So more about that in a moment. The second problem is we need some sort of amendment to our covenants to help us with enforcement on these issues. And finally, we realized we needed a full-time person to handle this task. Uh-oh. Nope, not getting there. All right, I'm going to do this from memory. So as I mentioned, I've asked Chuck Coulter to head up a subcommittee to work on the productivity and the technology piece. We've engaged legal counsel to work on covenant amendment to provide us more authority. And finally, with the assistance of Brett Martin and Penny and his staff, we've been able to hire a full-time land use monitor, Ms. Portia Ellis. And with that, I get to introduce Portia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So a little bit about myself, my background. I've been a realtor for 13 years. Currently, I still am. Most recently, I have served in a role as in HOA management, and covenant enforcement was a big part of that. So how that benefits the community here, Sea Pines, is that I'll be able to utilize that knowledge to problem solve, to find solutions to the complex cases. A lot of that through fostering and building relationships with the town and the community, and just being able to use, especially what the committee so far has, those relationships they've built as well. So basically, where we go from here with that, and what that means to you is we'll use these community coffees, we'll educate you, we'll assist the citizens of Sea Pines, and we'll get community input because it's a conglomerate effort, and we realize that. We'll continue to develop procedures and policies within a very dynamic environment, not being so rigid in the way that we view it, what we need to do with each case, because every case has been so unique that we found so far. We're going to focus our efforts on being proactive rather than reactive. And what that means to you is that we'll have no more 40 sand fiddlers. All right, so thank you guys for having me, and I am excited to be on board, and I'm here if you have any questions, or I look forward to meeting you. Okay.
Good morning. And welcome, Portia. All right, we'll spend just a minute on the beach and boardwalk update. For those of you that have attended these coffees regularly, you know this has been a regular topic, especially the last some months. But I am here to announce that the moratorium on rebuilding of new boardwalks, which has been in place since Hurricane Matthew, has been lifted as of today, May 1st. There is an approval process guide that has been assembled for oceanfront owners. It is a complex regulatory environment. It can be daunting to go through the process. We have put this guide together because we want to help these owners. We want them to evaluate their specific situation. And we want them, if they have sufficient use to build a boardwalk back and to build it back properly and to maintain it over time. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do with the policy is to protect the integrity of the dune system. It's so valuable. The beach is our community's most valuable asset. It does offer protection should we have a future event. So we're approaching this in a very cooperative way, and the process guide that will be emailed out tomorrow to all oceanfront owners that we have email addresses for should help facilitate them as they go through this process. We're also going to make it available on the website, and that will be done by the end of the week. We've talked about Tower Beach, and this is related to that process of how the dunes have changed post-Matthew, post-renourishment, post-sand fencing, post-vegetation. Beach changes every time the wind blows, and the wind blows all the time. So if any of you have been to the beach, and I hope that you have been, you have seen on a daily basis, if you're out daily, how much it can change in a relatively short period of time. And this was happening at Tower Beach. So Tower Beach is about 5 years old. When the boardwalks went in, they were built to all the current codes and requirements, again, to protect the dunes. But because of changing conditions, the boardwalk didn't change, everything around it changed. And so boardwalks 13 and 14, which are the two boardwalks at Tower Beach, went from protecting the dunes, portions of them, to compromising the dunes. So we just recently did complete that. What you'll see here is the main boardwalk, that's number 13. This was finished as of last month's coffee, so I showed this same photo. What you'll see on the left photo, which is the before, is that the end of the boardwalk, which used to be 2 feet above the dune, was no longer 2 feet above the dune. It was in the dune, in this area here. What you can see on the right side is the after photo, in which the boardwalk's been extended, so it's no longer in the dune. It's been elevated, so it's no longer in the dune, and it's been extended to go out to the seaward toe of the dune. This was in process last month. At last month's meeting, it's since been finished. Again, before and after, this is Boardwalk 14 at Tower Beach. And what you'll see in the before is that the boardwalk, not only was it in the dune, it was under the dune, where again, over time, sand had accumulated. And the right is the after, in which it's been again elevated and extended out to the seaward toe. So if you've had a chance to be at Tower Beach, in the last month or so, I hope that you were able to see these and enjoy these boardwalks. All right, switch gears to the Forest Preserve. I do want to let you know that we did have our spring fundraiser, the Party in the Pines, on April 6th. I see some faces in the audience that were there. We really do appreciate your attendance. I was the shaking mess over in the corner due to the weather. If you all recall, our backup plan was to go to the prep field house, and literally it was down to an hour and a half before the event. And I think, oh, we're in the clear, and started setting tables up, which we would normally have had set up already in the morning. And then it poured rain for about 20 minutes and soaked everything. So we had a great team, great volunteers, Salty Dog, can't say enough about them. Everyone pitched in, and if you were one of the early arrivals, you saw us putting linens on the tables as you were walking over the bridge, but the weather cooperated. It was a really nice event. Just wanted to thank everybody that attended for supporting us. I specifically wanted to give an acknowledgement to our sponsors, Ocean Woods, Monarch Roofing, and Surveying Consultants. And again, if you did attend, the food was provided at no charge by the Salty Dog, and they had an extensive menu. I can't tell you how many compliments I had on the offering that they had. Forget that it's a fundraiser. For that ticket price, the offering that was there, you couldn't make it at home for that value. The Salty Dog has committed to providing at no charge the food for our fall fundraiser, the bonfire. So keep that in mind, and thank you very much. They deserve that. I can't say enough about how much they've done, and their food has been so outstanding. And the comment that was made to me was that we're going to get a little crazy with the menu. And I thought, well, I thought you've been doing that. So I'm really looking forward to what they're going to do, and hope that you'll be in a position to support us when the bonfire comes around. wildflower field, beginning to bloom. It's running behind this year. Every year's different. It's the same seed mix. We prep it the same way. We try to plant at the same time, but that doesn't always happen. But every year is different. And this year's field has begun to bloom. You're primarily seeing toad flax right now. We need rain. We need rain. And the field should be progressing, getting a little better each day for the next several weeks. It would be our intent to put out an email when we think that it's at peak bloom, because it really is something special to see. But if we don't get rain, we're not going to have wildflowers. We're going to have dried flowers and sell potpourri. I'm not sure, but hope that you'll have a chance to get out and see it. And again, we'll let you know. Hopefully we will get some rain soon. We're very, very dry. Talked about this last time, switching gears to part of our signage that we've been working on for some years in the community. And the phase that we're working on now is leisure trail directional signage. A few of them have already gone into the field, and more are coming. We do anticipate completing the directional signage component for the leisure trails here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We had a lot to do this week, but unfortunately our sign shop had an unexpected project that was presented over the weekend, in which we had 30 street signs vandalized over this past weekend. So if any of you live in certain areas of Heritage Woods, South Sea Pines, if you notice that your street sign was gone, that's why. So the sign shop's been busy trying to get that corrected. But we are making good progress on this. This is just a before and after. This is crossed from the fire station, just right here, across the street. And on the left's the before, and the photos aren't that great, but the point I wanted to make is that, you know, we had an existing sign there. This one is actually in better shape than most that are out there now. But this is the new sign to the new standard, and it has that cubicle form. So depending on where the sign is placed, it can have directional information on up to 4 sides, which is really nice. The other point I wanted to make here is that you'll see there is a change in location from where the original sign was to where the new sign is. And so as we're going through this process, we're just not taking what is there, slapping it on the new sign and put it in the same place. We're going through a deliberative process, and we are looking at a site-specific basis. And if we think that by moving a sign or just tweaking the location makes it better, we are doing that. So more to come on that. I did speak before I switch to the next slide at the last meeting that we had engaged consultants to look at our stop versus yield sign on our leisure trails, and they have not provided the deliverable yet, but they were here for 2 days. I had extensive conversations with them. I've had some preliminary feedback. I did want to let you know that at this point, they are not recommending changing any of our stop signs to yield signs. So we will likely be staying with stop signs, but we'll wait on their final report. What we will do with the leisure trail signage is that when we complete the directional or the informational signs that we're working on now, we are expecting the report from the consultants in the next few weeks. We will then take their recommendations, and if it is to stick with stop or to change a few, whatever it may be, our next phase for this year is to then replace those stop signs for the leisure trails. So you'll be seeing that this year also. I'm waiting for this one to go away. It just won't. This is a South Highland Public Service District project. For those of you that may not have seen it before, both their water towers at Tower Beach and just this way at Lighthouse and Plantation have been being repainted. They both had cell towers on top. In order for the tower to be repainted, they had to set up temporary towers. They then had to move the antennas from the water tower to the temporary tower. As you can see in this photo at Tower Beach, the temporary tower is lower. I know some of you have been affected, some more than others, with your service. I know it's been very, very frustrating. This started back in October, I believe, so it's been going on for quite a while. But I just want to give you an update on where they are. Both towers have been repainted, and to date, Verizon is the only provider that has moved their antennas from the temporary tower back to the water tower. So if you're T-Mobile, Sprint, AT&T, and are in these areas, you may still have coverage issues. We do encourage you to contact South Highland Public Service District if there are any questions, but we hope that this will move faster than it has been to date, but that's the update. Last slide I had, save the date. Our 2019 Independence Day celebration will be Wednesday, July 3rd at Tower Beach. I again see some faces in the audience that have attended before. If you haven't, just wanted to let you know that we do have a limited capacity. This is a very, very popular event. We've offered this past year 1,000 wristbands. We will make notice when they will become available, so you'll have advance notice. But the last couple of years, our 1,000 wristbands have typically all been issued in less than 24 hours. So it is a very popular event. So if you're interested, when you see the email that comes out that's going to tell you when they will become available, don't snooze. And that's all I had. I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Russell, and appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? We had certainly a great turnout at our annual meeting the other day, and I'd like to continue presenting some of our projects that we're working on. And I know Mark and Brett had spoke at length about some of them. Quickly, just wanted to welcome Portia to our team. Portia, it's great to have you here, and you'll be a valuable asset. Dick, great work on putting that together. As there is a lot going on that I certainly see on a daily basis out there in Sea Pines. So all in an effort to continue to enhance Sea Pines for the future. So again, welcome. Greenwood Drive, as many of you know, this is still an active project. Recently, our staff completed some work. This happens to be by Lot 2, where we had some standing water. We installed some gravel underneath for drainage. Installed some wetland tolerant plants and kind of rerouted our drainage to that area. So again, just to point, Greenwood Drive remains an active project. We are also looking at some other drainage in proximity to Lot 2. So this project is not quite done yet. Hoping to wrap up in the coming months as far as Greenwood Drive Phase 1. But just wanted to point this out. This is a real improvement along the roadway. Spotted Sandpiper resurfacing. You know, many of our T streets are in need of paving. My inbox is quite full with requests from property owners living on these T streets. Many of them are in poor condition. You know, these roads were basically dirt roads not that long ago. The paving that was done is pretty much about an inch thick on most of these roads, and thus there's a lot of settling. In addition, there's substantial drainage failures in our drainage system on these roadways. Canvasback Road and Ruddy Turnstone currently have at least a dozen or more failures along those roads, both along the beach walks and in the roadways. We most recently fixed the drainage on Spotted Sandpiper, but again, many of these T streets that go down to the ocean are in the same situation. We really need to ramp this program up and get in there and fix the drainage and repave these roadways. Again, this is one that we're looking to pave this summer, but as you can see here, these numerous imperfections and settling in the road in many areas. So this requires milling, repaving, you know, going back in front of everyone's driveway and kind of putting a new course of asphalt down. We would estimate the work that would take about 2 weeks to complete. Audubon Pond Road, a little bit bigger project. Right now we're looking at June for this project. And again, also a roadway that is in need of attention, and as many of our roads throughout Sea Pines. So again, we're working with the property owners down there. As I know right now, no one has a larger move scheduled, but if you do have if you're expecting a moving van anytime soon, please let me know, as we don't want to interrupt your travel to your new destination. Lighthouse Road, we're working on this project and scheduling it for the fall. We're currently working with our engineer in the Sea Pines Resort on this, as this roadway is kind of interesting. A lot of the property adjoining Lighthouse Road is owned by the Sea Pines Resort. So we've met with Kerry and his team. And it's hard to see in this picture, but there's numerous crosswalks here down in the Harbortown area that actually empty into parking lots. So we really want to strive to improve safety in this area. And this is an important part of our road construction. We're always looking to where we can improve safety. And this is one project that will be a top priority, as well as addressing the drainage issue. So there's about 3 crosswalks currently that don't make sense as to where they go. So we'll be working with our engineers to improve egress, removing curbing, to improve areas down there and increase mobility. Right now, many of these curbs prevent folks that might be in a wheelchair from crossing the road. Again, these are things that are goals for this project. Plantation Drive leisure trail resurfacing scheduled for this fall. As you can see here in this photo, this is a condition that's throughout Plantation Drive leisure trail. The pavement is absolutely deteriorated in many areas. We've done a lot of patching over the years, but the leisure trail is in need of a full replacement from Greenwood Drive to down to the intersection of Plantation and Lighthouse Road. North Sea Pines Leisure Trail widening, this one's been a little bit challenging. We had to work with the Marriott. We continue to work with the Marriott closely. This area here is actually between Beach Lagoon Road and the Beach Club. The goal of this project is to widen the leisure trail, and this has to do with use. There's so many bikes and pedestrians and quite frankly, wagons. Everyone's kind of has a wagon in tow behind their bike that are coming down there, these 3-wheeled bikes particularly. So we're looking to widen this leisure trail to at least 3 feet wider than it is now. And again, to provide more access, more of a comfortable ride between Beach Lagoon Road and the Beach Club. So we really think this will help out with improved safety. The other thing that we're, as part of the project, there's 2 what we're calling rest stops or pull-offs, where if someone needs to make a phone call or something or wait for their friends before going to the Beach Club, they could do so and kind of pull off onto an asphalt pad on either end of this area. So again, this is a much needed improvement. We're looking at scheduling this project for the fall at this point. We don't want to start excavation in May or June when the use is so high. Beach boardwalks, my photo looks similar to David's photo because that is Tower Beach. But just want to point out on some of the boardwalks that we'll be rebuilding. This railing that David had recently constructed at Tower Beach, we will be doing the same on some boardwalks where we have elevation issues. Boardwalk number 20 specifically, there is a new set of dunes that we have to cross, which our boardwalk will end up being 30 inches in elevation, thus requiring this handrail. So again, just want to kind of show this typical detail of what we're looking to build. And essentially we're using a horizontal stainless steel cable to maintain an open view from adjacent properties and so forth. But the railing does have to be built to code. So this is a 42-inch high railing. And again, anywhere that we're 30 or more inches in elevation. So we're looking to begin work with number 23. I am currently trying to work out the fine details with the town regarding permits, so more to come on an actual start date. And just, I think I showed this before, but this is kind of a typical section in crossing the dune. Again, the guardrails as we cross elevations above 30 inches. And this typical section here would be pretty much a normal practice where we're not crossing taller elevations. It's a 6-foot wide boardwalk, which has what we refer to on the sides as you can kind of see here a toe kick. So again, this is will be our practice as we go through rebuilding these boardwalks. Baynard Park, we're currently working down there rebuilding this railing. And this was a really interesting project, even a small one. In terms of infrastructure and repairs, I really couldn't quite get the right photo on this, but there's a fishing platform where everyone fishes down here from in Baynard Park. All these posts that were going down into the water were completely compromised by marine borers and rotting. This was ready to fall into the water probably later this season. So we were able to budget for this and replace this, but this structure was probably about 30 or 40 years old, I would guess. Probably built in the CSA sign shop back in the day. It was not to present code. We raised the railing to the 42-inch height. These railings that were out here were a 36-inch railing. We're intending to put a horizontal stainless steel cable across and still provide access to the fishing platform, as you can see in the first photo. But again, as far as needs for this community, this exists throughout the community. These structures that railings, what have you, are all 30, 40, 50 years old and all need to be replaced over the next few years. Hoping to wrap this project up later this week. Just a few other projects that we recently completed. Outside the Greenwood Gate, we just finished some irrigation repairs and some landscaping, some new sod. We're still working on eradicating our vines throughout the community and working on our leisure trail patching. We also have some repairs to make in our irrigation systems and hopefully looking to do that later this summer. And of course, the Sea Marsh Bridge as well. I think I've spoken about that before. That's out on the Heron Point Golf Course, directly behind the Plantation Club. That is scheduled for June. So I wanted to share one last, hopefully, video, Stephen. This is a video I took down in Harbortown. Real quickly, I just wanted to share this with you. This is a corrugated metal pipe. We've had at least a dozen of these failures over the last 8 months, roughly. And you can see here in this video, this is where this pipe is compromised, essentially allowing water to flow out. These corrugated metal pipes throughout the Harbortown area have all been compromised by salt water. This is what exists throughout the beach walks. It exists throughout the community, particularly in Harbortown. If you live on Mizomas, Genoa, Lighthouse Lane, anywhere down there, this is what's outside your driveway. So I know Brett's going to be speaking about the importance of these infrastructure needs and critical needs throughout this community. I just want to underscore how important it is that we address this now and not later. My opinion is to take this a proactive approach. I'd rather fix this now rather than receiving the phone call that the roadway is collapsed and I can't get to work. These pipes go down, most cases are in the middle of the road. Again, from my experience so far, I've been involved in probably about 12 of these collapses and all related to crumbling drainage pipes. So again, just want to share that with everybody here this morning. Just on one more note, for a personal note, just want to say, this is my second year here in Sea Pines and celebrating my 2 years. I can't believe how quickly time has gone, but I just want to say what a pleasure it is to work here with such a great team, such a great board. Mark and Charlie's words the other day in our board meeting, I really appreciate that. It's really an honor and a privilege to work here. I just want to share that with all of you. Thank you. Let me just take one more quick second and introduce Mr. Heritage, Toby McSwain.
Thank you, Russell. Stephen, can you switch to the next slide? Thank you. Good morning. I would like to start off on a positive note. We did just finish the 51st Heritage. It was a great week. I think all accounts, our tournament director is sitting in the back of the room today, and I think he would probably echo these comments. It was a really good tournament this year. Friday was a challenge with the weather, but all in all, it was a really good tournament, well attended. We had some behavior that we dealt with better than in the past. But all in all, it was very good. CT Pan from Taipei was crowned the champion, and I got to tell you, that was one excited young man. We were getting ready at the end to go out on the green to present him with his jacket. And I asked him, I said, the tournament gives away this really nice jacket that matches practically anything. What size jacket do you wear? And he was like, well, I don't know, maybe a small one. So Steve went and dug in the closet, and I think he was like a 36. He was a very small man, but he was very happy. Very good champion. Not what I was anticipating was going to be the finish. I mean, there's some good golf played during the week of the tournament with the wins that we had, but all in all, it was very good. And I know from a property owner standpoint, setting up the tournament, the weeks leading up, the week of the tournament, there's some challenges. The tournament's bigger now than it's ever been. And I know that you guys and I know Steve would echo these comments that everybody appreciates. I mean, I know it's some frustration. It takes months to set it up, but you can see Sports America. I mean, they can take it down really quickly, but it takes a lot of time to set this up. So there is a lot of give and take on your part. But it is important. I think that for this community, I mean, this is a gem for us. There's a lot of places that would love to have this golf tournament. And when you look at the statistics, $41 million this tournament has donated to charity. And there's a lot of these charities that depend on these funds. So it is a challenge. The 1,200 volunteers. I look in the audience today, and the tournament couldn't be pulled off without our volunteers. There's no balls on the air without 1,200 volunteers because you guys do such a wonderful job. I got to tell you, staff, we issued over 5,000 hang tags. Frank, I just mentioned in the back that we had 4,500 to 5,000 people rode their bikes to the tournament. We moved almost 18,000 people on the trolley during the week of the tournament. We moved 6,000 people on Saturday, the week of the tournament. And I got to tell you, on Saturday, I don't know if I've ever seen that many people on the golf course. I did go to our connection with CBS. They did a fly around for us and took some still photographs. I am going to try to send those off to kind of get a snapshot of just what was on the golf course, because there was a lot of people out on the golf course on Saturday. But all in all, it was a great tournament. I will mention that I believe it is Clemson, Steve, did an impact study. I think every 5 years a tournament has an impact study. There was one conducted this year as well. And in the past, the tournament generated $96 million for the state of South Carolina. That is no small feat. That is a feather in our cap to have something like this in our backyard, but it was a really good week. So I appreciate everyone's support. Thank you. Moving on to the not so pleasantries. The 28 signs that David mentioned, we are working with this. We have not identified anyone. If you have any information, if you saw something strange, we know Friday evening the signs were in place this last Friday. And then it seemed like every day we're discovering another one that's been missing. But this was malicious. Some of the signs are completely missing. We kind of thought there was a scavenger hunt that had taken place, and I don't think that's really what this has turned out to be. Some of the signs you could just tell they were just kicked over and just maliciously damaged. So we ask that if you have any information, please let us know. Overall, it's fairly quiet right now. We have had 2 burglaries, and both of those over the past month have occurred here at Sea Pine Center. There was a subject arrested in that case. Still incarcerated, so that's a good note. But all in all, things are going good. Our numbers from last month to this month, we're actually down about 1,300 calls for service. The tournament for me inside traffic wise just didn't seem to be as busy as what we had in the past. We parked more cars in our right of ways this year. We overflowed into lot 3 this year. We haven't done that in quite some time, and that was obviously on Saturday. We had a lot of people turn out. But all in all, I think things are going fairly well for right now. With the busy season approaching, we do have a lot of people on bicycles, so we ask you to use caution as you're maneuvering around the community. Animal control, I would like to move. I just want to remind you, we do have an animal control service. It's paid for when you write your yearly check. If you have a nuisance animal that you're dealing with, give us a call. We have traps. We have a number of things that we can use, from armadillos to removing the raccoons. We can do it all. The only caveat to that is if you like to trap your own animals, then you're responsible for the animal that you catch. You can't call CSA and ask us to dispose of the animal that you caught. So if you catch it, you get to keep it. So We don't deal with your cage. We have our own cages. We have a fur bearer permit that we pull through the state of South Carolina that regulates how we go about our job. It's a free service to you. But we've had some calls here in the last couple of months where a property owner owns his own cage, caught the raccoon, and was like, he belongs to you. We don't dispose of that. If we do it, we take care of everything. We bait the traps, we remove the animal, we take care of all that. So it's a free service to you. So if you have some issues, let us know. It is alligator nesting. I believe some of those nests are hatching right now. If you see this activity, please let us know. We do mark the areas, and they have traditionally the females have gone in the nest, kind of keeps the same location. We do mark those. We put signage on those. So if you see that, please be careful. Turtle season. Last Friday read the article, which many of you I'm sure did. Kemp's Ridley, one of the rarest turtles, came and laid a nest on the beach for the very first time. So it is turtle season. And those of you that go out to the beach, I would ask, please help us. The beach patrol, when we bought the new beach vehicles, every one we bought, we have 2 now. There's a shovel in the back, and I'm actually getting ready to have a snow plow installed on one of them so that we can cover holes up. So if you go out to the beach, thank you. If you go out to the beach, help us cover a hole up. And if you got the time, pick up some trash, because not all of our visitors come here and take their crap that they bring to the beach with them. So please help us clean up. But we're covering holes. We're trying to get the word out. And I know we have a lot of volunteers that help with this turtle program. And the turtle program is a huge part of Sea Pines. And thank you for those volunteers that help us with that. But please give us a hand with that. Tower Beach. Received some calls over the last month. We are currently operating Tower Beach staffed with man hours Wednesday through Sunday from 8 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I've had some manpower issues, and that's the first location that I pull manpower from is from Tower Beach. We're trying to get back to full staff. Eventually, I'm hoping with the summer months, we will have our college kids out. We'll have it staffed full time, and it will be 8 to 4, 7 days a week. But right now, I've got some manpower, so I am pulling the person. So I know you called and said, hey, there's no guy at Tower Beach, very aware. They're doing something else because I need them somewhere, another location within the security department. I think that's about it. I do want to talk about the beach patrol in just a minute. We received one of our brand new trolleys. We've ordered 3 brand new trolleys. We have one. To be honest with you, when I look at them in the parking lot, I really almost can't pick the new one out from the old ones. But if you look on the very rear of the trolley, there's a kind of a platform that you can walk down to get onto the trolley. Very nice, 32 passenger, much better engine, better turn-in radius. We're expecting our second one this week. So we're in the process. The trolleys are not running right now other than the beach shuttle trolley. We're getting them striped, getting the synchromatics added to them. So we're doing a lot of work in kind of this downtime right now with the trolley. So they're very nice. So if you get the opportunity to see it, it's the only one that doesn't have Sea Pines on the side of it. It's brand new. And Steve, if you could go to the next slide that shows, this is the beach trolley that has been operating from lot 2 at the trolley lot. We did tell the community that we would make the numbers available to you. Starting out, we have been operating for 40 days at this point. We've had 254 cars park in the lot. It's not really a booming business right now. We've had, if you remember the 1st of March and even during some of the week of the tournaments, it was cold, just not a lot of people going to the beach. So we've had 15 days where we didn't move the trolley at all. It sat really in the parking lot and no one really rode it. But we have had 254 cars into the parking lot. We've moved 1,370 people from the parking lot to the beach club. So it's at least the cars are coming full. What we have had, but we've had some days where just not a lot of activity. Several days that there was no attendant at the beach club. We shut down the beach trolley and put the sign up just says go park at the beach club. So I do anticipate that the business will pick up as our busy season really gets into gear. But you can see we have it listed out there who's actually parking in the parking lot. And right now, the biggest seems to be is just short-term rental guests, was what you would expect, but probably those who don't have or are not staying near a beach access point. That's who's apparently is using it the most, is the resort guests that are here for the week. Do appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, I'll be around here at the end. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm Victoria Shanahan, Director of Finance and Administration. First of all, I want to welcome Portia. We're super excited that you're here. Okay. I won't be long. I wanted to just let you know that the auditors were here last month. They wrapped up our 2018 financial statements. We got a clean report. They didn't have any adjustments or any suggestions. The independent auditor was a firm called Elliott Davis. They're a firm, they're located here in the Southeast. They have, I think they have probably 24 offices throughout the Southeast. Our auditors came from Charleston. So we have copies of that audited report if you need it, and just let me know and I'll provide you either a PDF copy, or we do have, I think, probably 30 bound copies. Now, the annual report, which obviously ties into the annual audit, so that is ready, and we provided it on Monday. And that annual report will show you all of the audited financial statements for both ASPO, CSA, the Forest Preserve, and Six Oaks, as well as a little bit of explanation on each. We have copies of the annual report here available for you for hard copy, but it's also on our website. That's it. Thanks.
Morning. Humidity's back. It's like summer out there. I'd like to go through just a couple quick updates on the critical needs funding referendum information. Gene, if you could move to the, oh, I've got it, don't I? The right one? Oh, you did it. Okay. Okay, so we have mailed out the educational referendum booklet. There's additional information in a copy of that at info@csacpines.com. You can request one if you have not received it for any reason. We've also launched the voteforcpines.com website, where you can find information on the referendum terms and the critical needs as well. I explained, I think, at the annual meeting that at that site, you'll also get links to all of the reports that are referenced in the booklet, reports and findings and surveys that have been referenced. We are continuing to work to complete the ballot mailing package, which will include a call for notice of referendum with a collection of historical documents as a point of reference, as well as the amendment itself and the ballot. So all of those are being completed now to be sent out. As soon as we have those completed, we will post those on the website as well, so you have that reference. But it's important when you look at the amendment to understand what the amendment is. The amendment is an amendment to the 1974 covenants. Those covenants have also been amended prior to this. This is the 5th amendment. So there are 4 prior amendments to the 1974 covenants. So you have to read all of those to understand what is actually changing over this time. So the amendment itself cannot stand alone. It goes in conjunction with all of those prior amendments, as well as any unamended portions of the 1974 covenants. So we want to have that reference for everybody to take a look at and see what that language is and how that progression has occurred over time. So we want to make sure that that goes out. We will have links to those documents when we send out the update. And this information on the call for notice, as well as the amendment itself in the ballot, and a little memorandum in front of that to kind of talk about this process and what is happening here, because some of the language that this amendment is in other amendments, not in the original covenants. So you have to look at it as a body of work, if you will. And I think that's an important reference for everybody to have. But we hope to have that. We've got a deadline here on getting the mailing out. That means we got to get this stuff to the printer here this week. So we should have all this wrapped up this week and posted and information out there. So I know that was a question that I've heard from others. When will we have the information readily available? And we intend to do that this week. So you have that in perspective with all the other documents. So you have that resource as well. I think that's that. So what's next, Gene? Or I'm in charge, right? Thank you, Gene. Get informed. Visit voteforcpines.com for information regarding this critical needs funding referendum. Be on the lookout for the ballot, as well as all the amendment itself, as well as the information that we're going to be sending out. We are not going to send out to every property owner all of those documents. That's a pretty big group of work. So, but we will provide all of the references in that memorandum on where you can find all that information. Okay, so that's what's going to be coming out in the package. Vote yes, we need 75% support of the ballots returned to pass the critical needs funding referendum and amendment. Future of Sea Pines depends on your informed vote and support. We appreciate it. We're here for questions. We've got additional questions that have come in since we've sent out the brochure, as well as since Monday at the annual meeting. We'll be compiling those and posting those as well on the website, so we have that updated. So in the website, you'll see the Q&A section in there, and we've already added, I think, 1 or 2 additional questions to that section, and we will continue to do that. Just a quick note, we have also posted as a request the 14 Greenwood Drive documents. Those are also under 14 Greenwood Drive in news on the website, so you can catch those there. I believe they're also referenced in the Sea Pines, Vote for Sea Pines website as well, so you can find any of those that you are interested in. Okay, next. Okay, so One Sea Pines, our future, vote yes. We're certainly supportive of the referendum, trying to get this moved forward. We have agreement from the resort, we have agreement from ASPO, and we have agreement from CSA, and we're excited about getting this out to you so you can weigh in on your vote and see how many of you agree. Okay, with that, Gene, do you have any follow-up? Okay, we're taking a 5-minute break. We'll be back for questions. Thank you. Okay, if we could grab our seats, please, we'll get started. So, quick reminder, as Jean stated, please, as we recognize you, wait for the microphones. So Jean and David, is that correct? Sarah and David. Where's Sarah? Sarah? Raise your hand. Okay. Sarah will be coming around to you. Okay. Questions?
May I
Sorry,
start?
go ahead.
There was a question that we were unable to get to at the annual meeting, and so I think it's only fair that we start with that. It's kind of some comments and a question. It's from Terry Weiss of 23 Ridgewood, and this is her statement. 60% of us are non-resident owners. We are being deliberately excluded from board and governance. I have an email from CSA that says so. We are being asked to agree to amounts to a 40% tax increase in our assessment when, I'm sorry, it's just hard to read all this. When we have no say in how the money is spent. I refer to the $1.4 million cash spent for the Galleria shops that we had no say in. When the 900,000 hurricane assessment now being spent on other things. How can you justify $2.5 million a year on a referendum when 2.3 million just so recently was misspent?
So we're providing all of that information in our documentation and out there. And I think at the last community coffee, we talked about participation. And, certainly one of our objectives is to try to figure out how we can get more non-residents involved in our committees and our decision-making process. They are out there. They have concerns. I talk to them every day on the phone about things, and we need to address that and try to figure out how to do that. Technology today is changing, and there should be some opportunities to get more of that incorporated into our day-to-day. We are not there today, unfortunately, and it is challenging for the committees to work. I know that we have a couple of committee members who dial in, or we have meetings and people travel and they try to dial in, and it's their experience on the dial in is not very good. Their participation in those meetings is very challenging, and we're working on it. And I think that's an objective we should have, and we intend to continue down the road with. Most of the other statements in there, I think we've handled pretty well in our review and our brochure and the documents that we have sent out, and we will continue to make those communications and provide those to everybody. Okay, other questions? Dana? David?
Good morning. Hello, I'm Dana Guazzo, 43 Sandfiddler. First, I want to welcome Portia. I'm in the Land Use Management Committee as a volunteer and helped with the interview process, and I'm super excited. I think once you guys get to know her, you will really enjoy working with her. But that's not why I wanted to speak only. I wanted to have a couple of things that, from a safety point of view, that has really bothered me. And one is the tragic death of a young woman from an alligator. And I know that there is a lawsuit, I understand, against the community for a wrongful death lawsuit. And in looking at just in my neighborhood, for example, there's in Marshview, there's an area where there's a lagoon that's really near the walkway, near the road. There's not a big distance from the road to the water, and it's very similar level, very similar to the area where that woman was terribly killed. And there's a sign that says slow children playing. There's no sign about the alligators that typically hang out right there under that sign. I even have a photograph I took a couple of years ago of the alligator under the sign. So I'm concerned that maybe we need to have better signage. We have signage for our bicycle trails and all that, and I know we do have some signs about alligators, but areas like that, I really would like to see more, at least a sign. Maybe other things can be done. I don't know. I'm no expert on this. The other thing it bothers me is the death of the woman who was crossing Plantation Drive when she was hit on her bicycle. And I know that there are a lot of opinions about right-of-way and all that, but in order to get from Calabogie K, I ride my bike, in order to get from that road to the bicycle trail, which is across the street of Lighthouse, you have to cross the street. And there is an entryway to get onto the bicycle trail, but there's no indication that that should be a crosswalk area for bicycles. So that's something that those are two things that I wanted to bring up.
Thanks, Dan. First of all, before I get to the two questions, I want to talk about Portia. Just a story about Portia. We had the committee went through, and I don't know how many resumes they reviewed, but got down to 3 candidates, brought them in for interviews, and we did basically a regimen of interviews between multiple interests, including the committee of these 3 candidates, all of which were great candidates. The committee did a tremendous job at screening and looking at these folks for the purpose of this position. But in the end, after everybody interviewed every candidate, and I don't know if Portia's been told this or not, but we all sat around at a table and discussed the candidates. And it literally took Dick, what, 4 minutes, 5 minutes to make a unanimous decision to select Portia. So if you didn't know that, I just wanted you to know that everybody it was unanimous and everybody thought you were the best candidate by far. So welcome, Portia. We appreciate you and look forward to working with you. Okay, so back to alligators. Okay, Toby, I don't know if you want to talk to it, but we are putting out signs and on request of neighborhoods. So Dana, if you see an area, let us know and we'll go out there and see it. You know, the alligators move. So we understand that any body of water has that possibility. And we're looking at ways we can improve communications to people. So if we see maybe even mobile signs in conjunction with what we know as reports of alligators to move to those locations. We have done some of that. We've made like nesting for female alligators and things like that on occurrence of those things. But the more we know, the more we can do. So certainly everybody report those things to us. We will do everything we can to get some good notification out there and provide that in the community. But in lieu of putting signs on every water body in every location, we would like to have that notice to be able to provide it out in those areas that really are proximate, that are pathways. Leisure trails certainly are appropriate, but not necessarily every leisure trail needs that same sighting. So thank you on that. We're on the bicyclist. We're looking at that intersection. You know, we understand the challenge. I think at the annual meeting, we had another perspective on where we don't have pathways. We don't have pathways down Calabogie K or into Calabogie K. Or Calabogie Road. You know, that area is not pathed. So roadway is where people go from time to time. And we need to take a look at that and try to provide a better solution in the long run than what we probably have there today. But we don't have any specific plans right now. Russell is working on looking at what design might be appropriate for that area. And, we'll be continuing to move forward and try to address what we can address. So just we are looking at that and trying to figure out a better solution than we have today. Okay. Yes, right here. Sarah.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Cologne. I live next door in Lighthouse Tennis. My question is regarding the referendum. My sister lives in Hilton Head Plantation, and they recently had a referendum to change something. And they were opening the ballots as they received them. So, it was during the course of the voting, there was, we need 150 more to get this. We need 100 ballots more. We need 50 more. I'm just wondering what the mechanism is going to be for our balloting, if it's going to remain unopened or secret until all ballots are accounted for, or if there will be a posting of the ongoing results during the referendum.
We haven't discussed posting the ongoing results, but we can certainly discuss that. We are looking at how many people are responding and trying to get as many people to respond as possible. And we've set out a committee to do that very thing, to make phone calls and to understand who has not responded with their ballot to try to get that ballot back in. So that will be part of the process, yes, to do that. Back to Alex.
Just to follow up and clarify on that question, you're going to be noting whether a house or property owner has responded. Are you going to be examining how the property owner responded?
We'll have the provider will provide an updated tally.
But you won't be saying, hey, did Cruden vote yes or no? Well, let me tell the rest of the community.
No,
okay.
No, we will not know who voted yes, who voted no. We will be able to get a tally of where we are on it, but we won't know the individual except those who have not yet voted.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brett, I have a question from the webinar.
Okay.
This is from Ted Levitt, and it's for Toby. Toby here? Toby, Ted wants to know, first of all, he thanks you for the beach shuttle information, and he wants to know if you can define each category of passes, like weekly pass, certificate pass, resort guest pass, and so on.
Yes, if we might can put this back on the, on our website as well. Regular weekly rental passes, 17. The weekly certificate rental pass, 11. Resort guests, which would be someone getting their passes in advance through Bruce, 120. And property owner guest pass would be 100. Well, the weekly pass is a weekly pass. That's a weekly rental pass that they would buy at the gate. Their weekly certificate was purchased in advance by the property owner and given to the weekly rental person. A resort guest is those renting. Nope, cannot. Resort guest is is a renter renting through a private agency that would have a pass. Not. That's correct. Sea Pines Resort guests get to go park at the beach club. A property owner guest pass. So your friend that you call the passing for can go park there, and there's 100 of those. Relative decal, self-explanatory. Long-term renter and owner decal, and we've had 3 owners park and 1 ID card used. So, yeah.
Okay, let's go back to Carl.
I'm Carl Becker. I want to address the bicycle path yield versus stop sign issue. I'm appalled to hear that we spent thousands of dollars on a consultant to tell us not to change anything. Since this is a question and an answer session, I want to point out first that this is a family community and we have lots of kids who are taught not to respect stop signs at all. My question is, how many of you who ride a bike go any sizable distance and stop at every stop sign you come to? I doubt any of you can honestly say yes.
Did you want to show of hands, Carl? No, that do stop? I'm sorry, I had that backwards. No, I don't stop at every driveway. No. Lee does. Or you have a question, Lee? Oh, okay. So Lee doesn't stop, but he has a question.
That's right. I want to just mention I'm on the CSA Governance Committee, and to Terry Weiss's question, there's a subcommittee of the CSA Governance Committee that's addressing her question right now. We're looking at what technology is available for non-resident owners to participate as committee members. We think that's really important, and we're addressing that and hope to have a solution in the near future that obviously will require some purchase of additional technology, but it is being addressed. So I just wanted everybody to know that.
Thanks, Lee. Other questions? Go there.
Hi, Sheila Ferguson. So Brett, when we're talking about getting the interim votes, you know that there's a number of us that believe that our funding problems can be resolved through other ways. So representing the Alliance, will Alliance have access to the interim votes as well?
No.
Is that fair?
That the determination of the amendment and the referendum is through the resort and by the board, and they support it. They make those determinations as to access. They've named the committee. The committee is acting in the interest of the board to do the follow-ups and the calls, and that's why they named the committee to do their work. Okay. To Sue.
I have a question. Hello, Sue Emke. I have a question as to the legality of opening the ballots before the election time is up. Is that's legal?
Yeah, it's been considered. Okay. So the Elliot Davis, who is the certified election I don't know what their title actually is, so I'd have to go back to see it, but they're basically representative and licensed, if you will, to do these things specifically. So they're going to follow the guidelines that have been set out in the appropriate manners, and we'll have legal involvement as well with that. Okay, back to Dana, I'm sorry.
Dana Advocat. I just have a quick question. You said that the language of the referendum would be available and posted on the website this Friday, end of the week?
That's our intention.
Great.
Okay, we hope, as I said, we've got to get this information to the printer. So as soon as we send the printing package to the printer, that's what's going to get printed. So we can post those and get that out to everybody. So, but we want to have the complete picture of all of these different documents and references for everybody.
Great. Second question. When you find that someone hasn't voted and you call them, will you just be reminding them to vote, or will you be lobbying them to vote in a certain way?
I won't be doing anything on that, but the board is working with the committee to get the vote out and to support the referendum. They support the referendum. The committee is doing the work of the board in this election that has been, or this referendum and amendment of the covenant.
One might argue that your job is to provide all the information that we enable us to make our own decision. And I think we're all fairly well-educated residents here. I would argue that the legality of lobbying residents to vote a certain way.
Sure.
This is from Arnold, I think it's Bressler. Excuse me, Arnold, if I've said that incorrectly. It was stated at the annual meeting that 71% of the property owners voted in favor of the referendum in 2008. What percentage simply failed to vote?
I'll have to get that number. Just off the top, it was in the high 2000s that voted. So the remainder, and I believe somewhere in the neighborhood of 52 or 5,300 ballots went out for that vote. So that's the fundamental of it, but we can get more information on that and post that as to the actual numbers. But that's just off the top. It's been a little while since I looked at that. So. Direct.
Hi, my name is Rex Gale. 2 Otter Road, and 3 things. One, I want to also say that we live very close to Club Course, and we have the same issue at Club Course in Greenwood, right inside the gate. There's not any kind of a crosswalk there, and we'd like to have something, considered there. The other thing I'd like to say is I know that one of the big issues within the community has been the gate, and what do we do with the gate? And just personally, I do believe, and I really support the board purchasing the gallery of shops, because that is probably the singular property. I would hate to see a Chick-fil-A there. I would hate to see an In-N-Out Burger there. At least with that purchase, there is an opportunity at some point down the road to fix that issue. And without that purchase, I think the opportunities would be somewhat limited. And I guess the third thing, I want to go back to that 2008 agreement. There's been a lot of conversation out there about why didn't we address this earlier? And I think what that showed me was there's been the intent to address our infrastructure issues in the past, but it's the residents who really have not allowed that to happen. And again, I very much appreciate all the work that you all have done. This is an amazing place to live. We do need to increase some of the clearly the infrastructure issues around it. So I just wanted to say thank you again for all you've done.
Back in the back there, this lady back here. Oh, I'm sorry, Rosemary.
Oh, thank you, Rosemary Kimball. I just wanted to say that yesterday's meeting was fabulous. The brochure you sent us that cost $2 each was wonderful. We finally have the true facts. And, I want to say we were talking about yesterday, how did we get to this point where we need so many revisions and upgrades in our community here. Well, I think it's not because of the boards we've had. I think in the past it was, our CSA staff. I've been here 25 years, and I know years ago I was very reluctant to even enter CSA because I was intruding on their property, sort of thing. George Breed was very inaccessible. It was a very different atmosphere, and I believe the staff then really did not bring these facts forward to our residents. I think we hadn't a clue what was going on when 20 years ago or 18 years ago. And it's because of Brett, who has come and gathered this terrific staff. And, you've done a wonderful job. And I hope that we can pass the referendum so we will have money to let you all do your job. I feel like, I don't want to lose any of you because, it's very frustrating for you to put up with all that we've gone through this past few years. And we now have all of this information. I feel too much information sometimes because I voted for the board, and I appreciate the board taking over these things. I don't want to be involved in every day-to-day, purchase of the shops or whatever. You are the experts. I think we should have confidence in you. And I just hope that I'll be one of those people that are going to be calling to say, please pass the referendum. We need the money. We need them to do their job and to improve our community. So I hope that the Alliance does step aside and let's move forward. And I want to thank you all for all that you've done. I think we have a great community. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to echo the staff and the board. I mean, it's been a long few years getting to this point. And the staff has done a tremendous job in, communicating all of these things, as Russell and David and Toby do every month here in front of the community. We're in the process of trying to get more people engaged, and that's really what we're trying to get accomplished here, and to share as much as we can. But as you said, there's a lot of information in Sea Pines. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about different things. Just this amendment, as I mentioned earlier, has to be put in perspective with the original covenants and the amendments that have occurred since those, so that you can see what you're doing. So, I looked at the last referendum, for example, and it just went out with the amendment. That was it. There was a little background on why we need the money, but it was very simplistic as to information you should be considering when you make your determination. And I think the important thing is to look at that history of where we have been and where we are today in that amendment to make a good decision. And certainly the board has been working on this for a long time. The CSA board voted unanimously to support this determination and to move forward with it, which means that we have agreement. We have agreement from all of those different interests to move this forward, with the exception of the residential property owners. And we need 75% of those to really finalize and to get this agreement accomplished. Christopher?
Brett, are the terms of the referendum set in stone? The reason I'm asking is that thank goodness we have a substantial number of visitors, and otherwise financially we'd be in a truly dire state. But if you look at the underlying gate pass data over the last 3 years, the traffic management changes that have been introduced are clearly having some success at the gate inward. And so why I'm asking about are the terms cast in stone? It's a two-sided question. One, it's pretty clear from what we've been told so far, and maybe it's because of brevity, but it would appear that a substantial number of contributors to the revenue of CSA are not being asked to put their hand in the pocket, and I think they should. For example, the Grand Ocean, the Monarch, the Marriott Heritage Club, the Sea Pines Country Club, Hargray, so on. The easement holders, and there's no mention of it, and they contribute currently about 750,000. Now the other side, so that's revenue, but there's the other side of the coin is your spending proposals. The 7-year plan was published in January, and it includes a substantial amount of expenditure on the reconfiguration of the gate. Great, but within there's a substantial amount of money to redevelop the gallery of shops. And it's predicated on the basis of gate pass, management of traffic inward. And I don't think the data is so clear that that is required. And we've got ABDI about to be implemented, and Toby's been quite clear about that. And I know it's behind schedule, but it's about to be implemented. So I think the justification for building a new gate pass facility is no longer as strong as it was. And I would like to ask that the money that's been allocated for that be spent on the truly critical infrastructure matters, and that we should be seeing some effort or some explanation of why certain categories of payers are not being asked to pay more. And secondly, we should be able to see a revised 7-year spending program based upon what you now expect to be in 2020, your additional revenues.
Okay, so couple things, just so everybody understands what we're, the amendment is to generate funds. We have purpose for those funds that's been identified in the 7-year plan. Budgets in a nonprofit, okay, occur annually. Okay, so no funding for those has been approved. That approval process goes through the board. This is a funding to give the board and future boards the opportunity to determine the best use of the funds within the categories that have been established. Okay, so that future board, next year's board, should the referendum pass, will have a different funding source, additional funding source to make their decisions with. These funds are restricted, however, to these purposes. But within those purposes, determinations other than the plan right now, I don't have a contract to build a building at this point, but that will have to be brought forward to the board for approval. Okay, so if in fact something changes between now and then, things will change. I know from my experience here that things change every day. I mean, it changes pretty quickly, and, the board makes these considerations, and, sometimes we do budgets that say that's subject to something else. So all of these things happen in conjunction with the law and what are required of the board, and that they set an annual budget. They are not committing to these things out front in the distance, but they are committing to controlling these funds to these purposes. So I don't think you can say that there's a final determination. We don't know how much all these roads are going to cost yet. I don't have bids on those. I don't have contractor drawings for some of the infrastructure requirements related to them. I don't have landscaping plans for all the corridors at this point. I have some, and we will move down this process with these funds and continue to do what the board and the community, as we have involved the community, think are the highest priorities. So you have to take this into perspective that there is still an ongoing process. This does not replace it. That we go through every year to do our business plans, to pass our budgets, and to communicate with the community about what we're up to. And that has to continue by requirement. Okay.
Sorry, Brett, I understand all that, and the process works very well, and the information provided and the backup information that is available on request is terrific. I'm not questioning the process, but when you first submitted the terms of the referendum, going back several months, part of the package was a critical spending program phased over 7 years. And that shows clearly a commitment to redevelop gallery shops to create a guest pass facility, which has been mentioned several times. And all my point is, for a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, for a lot of people, it's a big red line, a gate pass building. And we don't want the gate pass building, I don't think, to become the equivalent of Lawton Stables. That's all I'm asking.
Understand, and this will continue on, so. Okay, let's go to Michael. Go ahead.
Let me make a comment with regard to the gate pass building. As chairman of the gate configuration reconfiguration committee, we were asked some time ago that we needed to vacate the gate pass facility that we have at the Welcome Center. That means any type of gate pass issued, we have to find a location to be able to continue that process. When we looked at options and looked at 278, there was no property there. And if you came across the cross island and needed to get a pass, you've got to go around the circle, go to 278, pick up a pass, then come back through the circle to come into Sea Pines. There was no particular position available or location available on Palmetto Bay Road for that facility to be located. And if you came down 278, then you got to go make a right turn onto Palmetto Bay to go to a facility that didn't exist and then come into the property. The other option that the gate configuration committee is, what kind of a double wide do you want as the entrance into Sea Pines? Technology we know we would like to have that would allow us to give that capability coming forward. But let me remind you, yes, you do have the ability to get a boarding pass when you jump on an airline. But when you get to that gate, what happens? It has to be scanned. If we give you technology that allows you to order a pass over the phone for your guest, and that guest has it on the phone, and they come to Sea Pines, guess what they have to do at the gate? They have to stop and have that scanned. That means every pass that's done electronically is going to stop at the gate. You think you have a backlog of traffic now? Just imagine. So what we've done is we've made the determination that let's find a facility that moves the traffic congestion problem off of Greenwood Drive, the #1 problem that the survey told us was out there, and it still is a major problem. Let's move that traffic off of Greenwood Drive, and let's put it at the new pass office in a parking lot facility, so all the transaction process could be completed. And once you pick up your pass, we add an extra lane that gives you plenty of time to get into the proper lane coming into Sea Pines. Now, when you approach the gate, you get waved through as opposed to every car having to stop at the gate. This is not the perfect solution for our gate, but it is the best solution that we've looked at from technology and from solving a problem that I've been on the board for 5.5 years, and I know has been out there. And this is the best solution we have at the present time, and this is why we're going forward with it. Thank you.
Michael, I think you have a question here. And then we'll go to Michael.
Thank you. Nina Mastrangelo, Beachside Tennis. My question is going out the gate. Did you look at that as well? Because I've heard that the town of Hilton Head says there's no funds to fix the circle backlog, up Greenwood Drive, leaving Sea Pines. But is there anything we can do to encourage Hilton Head?
I'd simply say to that, we are very much aware of the problem exiting our gate as well, but we do not have complete control over that problem. That problem is at the town.
I understand.
I do know that Tom Lennox is sitting in the back of the room. I do know, or I'm aware of, a meeting that Tom and Mark Griffith has had and the mayor have had, indicating that the town plans to be looking at that very, very seriously. They are very much aware of the need for that to be fixed and not continue to be pushed down the road, kick it down the road, the can down the road like we were doing with all of our maintenance issues.
Right.
And I know that that's it. Tom, would you like to just agree to that position or discuss that? Because you are the person that would have
good.
anything to do
Well,
with the town.
I can just
egress.
say that I have seen people go into Staples to try to go out the other light
Right.
around. I mean, it's very dangerous
Yep.
situation that and it's all town of Hilton Head once you get out there.
As you know, the Sea Pine Circle fails the traffic test. And
Yes.
the town has known that for a number of years. What Michael says is right. There's insufficient funding to do what needs to be done there. That being said, there's a lot of discussion right now at the town level about a quality of life referendum in 2 or 3 years. That referendum would replace the 5 mills that we all currently pay for Hurricane Matthew. That 5 mills raises about $4.5 million a year. If we were able to bring something forward in the form of a quality of life referendum island-wide, I assure you that 2 things are going to be top or near the top in priorities. One would be fixing the Sea Pine Circle, and the second would be an access road between Greenwood around through Publix onto Palmetto Bay. The circle is getting a lot of study, a lot of attention, and it will be a priority.
Oh, that's great. And just make sure that Sea Pines residents know about it so we can go enforce and be there. Thank you.
Let me make one more comment about this while I've got the microphone, and I'll shut up and go sit down. I've heard people say that we're talking about urgent needs for this infrastructure repair. I moved here in April of 2012. Bob Mang, in the fall of 2012, asked me to chair a task force of CSA to look at a strategic plan for this community, one that was not been implemented for over 15 years. And I volunteered to do that. I've been working on strategic planning for this community now since that period of time, and the infrastructure needs were looked at then, every year since then. What was happening was when your annual assessment went up 0.009%, and it went from $1,016 to $1,018, you had a $2 increase on your assessment. The cap that we have on the CPI did not allow us to raise your annual assessment. So what we've done over these years is when we had infrastructure needs that we wanted to do in 2015 or 2016, 17, we just kept putting them down, kicking them down. We didn't have the funding for them. So we wanted to do it in that year, and we said, well, no, we'll do it the following year. We didn't have the funding the following year. So it's been looked at every year since 2013 and beyond about what we need to do. We simply didn't have the funding. And the last thing I would say with regards to Brett and his staff, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus here, but the reality is after Bob Mang asked me to chair the Strategic Planning Committee, the first thing I did was have a meeting with a former person who sat in Brett's position. And I visited with Carrie and I said, I don't know anybody here. I've just moved here. But I've been introduced as chairman of the Strategic Planning Task Force, and I want you to know I have no power over your job. So I need your input to help me move forward. Let me ask you a question. How often do you meet with your staff in order to make sure this community is working properly? And the answer was, what do you mean? I said, how often do you bring your staff together and determine the future of Sea Pines? Oh, never. I said, let me make sure I understand this. Are you saying you've been here for 8 years and you've never had a staff meeting collectively? Oh, no, we never. I've always worked one-on-one with my staff. I shared that information with Bob Mang that afternoon. 3 months later, having been in the search business for 20 years, Bob Magum asked me if I would chair a search committee to replace that gentleman for this community. I had that opportunity. This is what our search committee brought you. That search committee brought you a gentleman who has been very transparent with his staff, who has brought together and accumulated a very competent professional staff that I know reaches out to you and answers your questions. So let's not be too forgetful of what we had some years ago, right? Thank you.
You have another question for Michael? Got to stay up here, Michael.
This should be an easy one for you, Michael.
Yes.
First of all, I want to regarding long range plan, the best part, I've done a few of them. The best part of a long range plan is it gets redone every year. Okay. So things change.
Correct.
Now, getting personal now. I live on Governor's Road, which comes out of Club Course. What did y'all finally decide on how we're getting out of Club Course Drive after all the traffic is solved and they're going down Greenwood like, you know, out of sight?
First, let me say, Charlie, I'm glad to hear that you're moving back to Hilton Head and you're not going to be a Colorado resident. We're going to get you back. Is that
We're
true?
ecstatic to be back. We
Well,
love
welcome.
Sea Pines.
And the second part, I'm going to turn that over to Brett because he can address that part.
Okay, Brett, I'm anxious to hear this.
Well, I'm actually going to pass it on to Toby before he gets away. Because we've done some things.
A flyover? Or we're going to have a flyover?
No, hold on.
One of the things we have implemented here in the last month, you've noticed right at the intersection of Club Course and Greenwood, there's a nice, real attractive black post with a camera hanging on it. We've installed a camera that has a video feed back to the gates. The gate staff has been instructed to monitor the traffic there, and if need be, we just basically hold the gates up to allow traffic to start to flow out of that intersection. So that's what the camera was installed for, is just as a relief valve when traffic starts to back up. We just hold the gate up.
That was one option that was discussed with the
Yes.
gate. Yeah.
And that's been
Good.
done.
All right, great. Two other issues. One, Portia, welcome. Thank you. What about Dave Risk? Is Dave still involved at all?
Yes, Dave's still with us. He's actually, I think, pretty well transitioned Portia. I think she's on the go. So Dave is working with Russell, David, Toby, and the ARB and Sandra in my office to facilitate some of the details of work that we need done in the field primarily. So he'll be out there looking at the beach. He'll be working through, Dave is a great resource. He's been with us for a long time and he knows our covenants. He knows our processes. He knows how things work here. And we, quite frankly, can't get a full staff to do all our stuff.
Well,
so we're always short-handed. So, to lose someone with that knowledge and that expertise would be a real challenge for us.
Yeah,
And
Dave
we
has
wanna
been
avoid
great.
that.
Dave has been great. I just wanted to say that.
Yes.
Thank you.
He's staying at, I think, 16 hours a week or something. He just wants to work. That was really the challenge with what the LUM wanted to do, is we needed a lot more work done than he could just get done. And he didn't want to go, full time. So we made sure that Dave had some, and we had some needs already that we needed to fulfill, and that Dave just transitioned into those needs. Okay.
Brett, I'm sorry.
Let's go over here, then we'll go over there. Where?
Right.
Then we'll go there, because I already talked.
There's a question related to that. That's why I was.
Well, so is this one. Right, Michael? Okay.
Michael Wolf, Deer Run Lane. Two questions. You can probably handle both of them. You may want to dump one off to Michael Tucker. I was looking at the Gate Reconfiguration Committee presentation, oddly enough, earlier this week. And as I understand it, Publix has agreed to give us an additional curb cut that will allow us to feed people coming out of whatever gets built there onto Greenwood to make a right-hand turn and go to the gate. But Publix has not agreed to give us an easement to build a bridge across the creek so that people who get to the gate but have to be sent back have a way to do it without engaging themselves on Greenwood. And that seemed to be the sticking point, that we were trying to get an additional easement from Publix. Can you give us an update on
Sure. A couple things on that. There are no additional curb cuts on Greenwood Drive, correct, David? Okay. So there is a request to approve an existing agreement to connect, easement and agreement to connect the two properties, and that is the Resort Welcome Center property with this parcel. It's already in the easements, but it requires approval, and they can't withhold the approval without due objection, right? That would impact them. So our perspective on this is that we're going to have to make, a accommodation to them, probably in that process, but we have the right.
We have the right, but we still have to negotiate with them. And
it just says we have the right, but we have to have approval from the resort as well, which they have approved. So we've gone through the requirements of completing the easement, if you will. We're just getting non-response from Publix. That's our challenge. So, our objective is to try to get them to respond and to acknowledge the easement and the requirements of that. They're just non-responsive. So I can't say anything else. So we're having to go through that process.
I tried to work with Publix and get used to it.
I know. So, I hope we don't end up in some other, action. I think there's some reasonableness there, but we're working with an attorney that's in between their corporate attorneys, and, they're just a challenge. I mean, they really are.
Let me, Michael, before you go, let me make a comment. It's Mark Griffith. I've recently identified a resident who sits on a board of the University of Tampa with Howard Jenkins. Howard Jenkins is son of the founder and is current chairman CEO of Publix. We're not getting response just because of the structure. We're dealing, Brett and Walt are dealing with a regional property manager. I'm sure that's extremely busy. And is just being non-responsive. So we're now working from the top down, and I'm hopeful that with Howard's assistance, we'll get some attention, because there's nothing that we are asking for in addition to what we already have rights to do that any reasonable real estate developer, which is what Publix is, shouldn't approve. So thanks.
Well, we're before that. So, I don't think that's the right relationship we want to establish, but, we're trying to work this out and get this in accordance with what's already provided. Another interesting thing for Publix that we've already let them know about is that if they make any change in that shopping center, guess who needs to approve it? So that alone should help our relationship improve somewhat. So, we have the rights of the commercial architectural design review, which includes density for that site. So, changes to the site are going to have to come through the CARB, as we call it, which is a formed entity now that possesses that right for CSA to review those things. So, it'll be an interesting process that we'll go through. Okay.
Second question.
Sure.
And I want to be very careful how I phrase this, because I don't want it to sound like criticism. Everybody wants the referendum to be fair and represent the residents of Sea Pines. Based on what I have heard today, have a real concern about the Get Out the Vote committee that the board has set up. And the board has every right and should promote the passage of a referendum that they support and that they believe we need. I haven't heard anything that would suggest that these phone calls that we're going to be making to get people to come vote are going to be directed uniformly across the residents who have not voted. I know Larry Motion is active, or at least reasonably active, on social media. All you've got to do is look at Sea Pines homeowners or neighbors or Aspio, and you can get a pretty good list of people that support the referendum right now. Are they the ones that are going to be called if they haven't voted? And are the Terry Weisses of the world going to be turned off? Is there going to be a process that selects who gets those calls, or are those calls going to be made uniformly based on this person hasn't voted, regardless of what we know about them?
Michael, I'll take that. There's two steps. There's the committee, and then there's the board. As Brett said, there's roughly 52 or 5,300 of us who have a right to cast a ballot. Once the ballots go out, I personally will be recording a message that will be by computer, robo, will be calling to say, your ballot has been in the mail, look for it, please return it. And that's going to be 5,300 phone calls that are done electronically. The committee will then, and there are, as of the annual meeting, I think there were 37 members, and we've got another 12 or 15 volunteers since the annual meeting. Are setting up a phone bank. They will begin making personal calls to every resident, asking them personally to vote. And yes, Michael, asking them to support the referendum. Okay. Now you get ballots in the mail several weeks or a week. I think Elliot Davis has said they'd let us know every week or 10 days where ballots have not been returned. So now we have a list of people who haven't returned a ballot. So now that committee will move to calling those of you who have not returned a ballot and asking you to return a ballot. And because they're acting at the will of the board, they will be suggesting that it would be appropriate to support. Yes. So that's kind of the effort as I see it at this point.
First of all, I'm not a member of the Alliance. If the Alliance wanted to make phone calls, would CSA provide the phone numbers and the information?
No. Names.
Wait, somebody said
names, yes. Addresses. I don't believe phone numbers. Is that right, Brett?
That's the current requirement. Yes.
We're required to produce the member list. We're required to the registered mailing address and name, if requested, will be provided.
So to put it in other terms, the board wants to pass the referendum.
Of course.
The board has set up a phone bank of people that support the referendum.
And a committee.
And CSA is going to give them all the contact information of all the residents, so phone calls can be made to promote the referendum.
Correct.
But anybody that opposes the referendum is not going to be included on that phone bank list, and is not going to be.
Well, we wouldn't know whether they support or not support. It's simply a phone call to a resident.
I heard Charlie Miner at the meeting yesterday, Monday, lambast the Alliance.
Yeah.
As the vocal, you got to know them then. You can't point to somebody and say,
no, but these outbound phone calls, whether they're a recorded message from me or a personal call from Becky Pardue or David Pardue or Larry Moshvan, okay, are not making a determination of whether you are a supportive resident or a resident who's not supportive and might be a member of the Alliance or maybe an old member of Spur or any of the other group that might be opposed.
But
They'll get the same phone call
an
that you
ad
will.
hoc committee of over 36 people that support the amendment or the
Yes.
referendum are being provided information to contact residents.
Because they are
And
a
because they
member of a
because-
standing committee approved by the board with a charter with specific direction to serve at the will of the board doing CSA's business. And if anyone wants to challenge that, so be it. No, it's not a list. It's CSA members. Has nothing to do with ASPO. ASPO is required to support or not the terms of the referendum, and they have chosen to. But this committee and its members are working on behalf of the board of CSA. Right. CSA. We're all members, regardless of our persuasion. I have no idea who belongs to what. I just know that you are a assessment paying property owner.
Okay, let's go to our questions and answers, please.
I don't know
so
whether
we can get to
I don't know
everybody
who,
who's been
who
waiting
belongs to
comment.
what, other
So-
than CSA. Yeah, I know who are ASPO members, but ASPO is not taking this action. CSA is taking this action. Oh yeah. Of course, of course.
Okay, back to this gentleman here.
Joe Ondo, I've spoken once or twice before. I've been a property owner for 39 years, and most of them I've been very ambivalent about the everyday workings of Sea Pines because I hadn't lived here that long. I'm a full-time member, a full-time resident about 11 years. And I think what people need to know is what is Alliance and why was Alliance all of a sudden pop up and have some say in what's going on. And I brought it up in one of the ASPO meetings that there are people who finally get involved in the everyday goings on of what's happening in Sea Pines. And they realize that various decisions made by ASPO and CSA are somewhat counter to what we believe in and so people have formed alliance because there's a lack of, not a lack, but there's somewhat I'd say a lack of confidence in what decisions are being made by people representing us. Expenditures being made, lack of transparency, and overall not representing the property owners as they should be. It seems to me that whenever a situation comes up, everyone caters to what goes on with the resort questions. I brought up an issue at one of the meetings, and the question says, well, the resort would bring a suit against us and we don't have the money to fight it. So with any kind of negotiation that's going on, as soon as the resort says, well, we're going to sue you, then everything stops and everyone just goes to what the resort wants. Alliance has come along and has brought up contradictory issues, and some of them have merit, not all of them have merit. And it seems to me that the attitude of ASPO and CSA is, well, the Alliance is just a bunch of residents who have nothing better to do but to fight. I realize that a lot of work is done on boards. I've served on boards, but the opposition should have a fair shot at presenting their issues. And that's not happening in the last 2 years that I've been finally listening to what's going on. And I think it's a sad situation. I mean, the booklet that was put out that I received, it's propaganda. It's telling you to vote yes. It's not telling you to look at the issues and make a decision. You're telling people to vote yes. And another issue is the $2 increase at the gate. You're saying, well, the increase in revenue is such and such, but how much of that money are we giving out to commercial interests? So there's a lot of things. The gate agreement, we haven't seen it yet. I understand there's a lot of reasons why we haven't seen it, and the question, the answer has been kicked down the road like other things that are going on. And the gate agreement, there's some issues there that I'm sure some people would have some opposing views to. And the point of this whole thing is that that an opposing idea should not be just turned aside. And it's affecting, the referendum didn't go through the last time because of serious issues that was going to be put into effect, such as taking down the tennis courts and moving everything over to Lawton and all that other stuff. The transparency wasn't there, and when it did come out, enough of concerned citizens got together and decided that something has to be done. So we just don't want a rubber stamp of what, and believe me, I'm not against the resort by any stretch of the imagination. The resort has done great things. They've invested a lot of money in our community for their benefit. I really disagree with some of the statements made in the brochure that our property, I mean, it's a scare tactic. Our property values are going to go down. Our property values are not going to go down if we don't put this referendum through. Do we need infrastructure? Yes, we do. Do we need storm drains? Yes, we do. We need a lot of things. But don't say that if this referendum doesn't go through, we will not have, our property values are going to go down. Part of the referendum is great. I mean, I believe that our assessment every year is beyond reasonable. I think an increase in our assessment is great. It's how we use the money. And to put out, and I asked at a meeting last year what the total cost of the gallery building was. And I was told that it was going to be $3 million by the time we buy it and fix it and tear it down and put up another structure. And then I asked the question, well, if the cost is $3 million and it's benefiting, who is it benefiting? And I asked the question to Mr. Griffin, and he said it's going to benefit 50% commercial and 50% resident, which was his exact words to me. And I says, well, how is the expenditures going to be? And he assured me that it was going to be 50% of the commercial and 50% of the residents were going to pay for the gallery, the whole building. And I doubt that's going to happen. So these are just one of the few things that to look at the alliance and just to wave it off as a group, it's an alternate view.
But I would like to respond to some of the things you're saying.
Okay.
You've been talking for a while now. So I'd like to respond to a couple things. I'm Charlie Miner. I'm one of those representatives that you elected who's not representing you, perhaps. I take offense to that to a degree because I work with the rest of the board and particularly with Brett. And from a standpoint of transparency, from a standpoint of trying to do the right thing for the community, I've served on a lot of community boards. I've been president of boards of education, Leadership Cleveland, Cleveland Roundtable. This is a great board and they really try and do what's best for the community. You mentioned something that's wrong, so I'll correct that. You said that the resort threatens to sue us. The resort has never threatened to sue us. We've threatened to sue the resort, but they've never threatened to sue us. We threatened to sue the resort when we were in negotiations over, well, we didn't even threaten, we suggested it. That was over the hotel agreement down in Harbortown. This is not the hotel agreement. This is the necessary infrastructure to hold this place together. And all you have to do is take a look at the work that Russell's doing. And it's not just that. Think about some other things. How hard is it to hire a security guard that is competent to represent our community here in Sea Pines when they have to cross over the bridge and we have competing offers from every other plantation because Toby does such a good job on selecting his officers. So what happens there? You end up with a wage escalation that far exceeds what we're able to cover in our CPI adjustments. So it's a combination of a variety of things. The things that need to be done, I'm sympathetic to the Alliance. We spent hours with the Alliance, with Greg Morris and Dick Matthews, trying to figure out what it is it takes to stop fighting, because they're very good wordsmiths. And I don't think they have a problem having access to the community. They've got a good email list. They got their own phone list. They will do their best to defeat this. And that's their right. I'm just not going to help them because I think that's a serious problem. I didn't lambaste them at the meeting yesterday. I simply told the truth about what happened. We had meetings, we failed to come to agreement, and they had two major demands, which they're never going to get. So what's the plan? Defeat the referendum? Okay, then what? So there was no plan for that. So I think I'm not particularly worried about the idea of whether or not we're transparent. We do everything in our power. Our board meetings are open. This is on webinar. I mean, this is stuff that didn't exist 5 or 6 years ago. And so we do our best. And I think that we have a team here that has a job in front of them. We need to support that team. They're good people. They know what they've done. They've done their homework. We need to support them. That's my comment.
Brett, one further comment since you made a statement of something that I said to you. I don't believe I ever said to you that the $3 million estimated cost to redevelop the gallery shops into the new pass office was going to be 50-50 paid for by the commercial interest and the residents.
I beg to differ.
Allow me to finish.
Okay.
What you asked me at least once and maybe twice is who would benefit. And I think what I said to you, I believe what I said to you is that everyone would benefit. And you didn't like that response, but I don't believe I ever indicated that it would be paid 50-50 by the commercial interests and the residents.
Now we have a difference. It's a he said.
I'm just telling you what my view is.
Okay, well, I'm telling you what my view is. You told me 50-50.
Never happened.
Okay. Was anybody present at that meeting that could substantiate that?
Okay. David, right here.
Dennis, my name is Dennis Meyer. I live at Oyster Landing Lane. I just picked up a couple of things from what this gentleman just said, and also from Christopher's question, which is we need to be absolutely clear in this referendum on what we're voting for and what we're not voting for. As I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we're simply voting on whether to increase the assessment to by $150 a year for the next 3 years. We're not being asked to vote on the gallery. We're not being asked to vote on funding for the trolley. Those issues will be decided later if we have enough money. The board will decide how these monies should be spent and what our budget should be. And Christopher and others will have an ample opportunity to lobby the board afterwards if they don't like where the money may go. They can lobby on the Galleria, they can lobby about the trolley, and they can lobby about everything else that they're opposed to, which is, I believe is just about everything. One other thing, this referendum, we have almost what appears to be an almost insurmountable problem in that we've got to get 75% vote. That means if twice as many people vote in favor of this referendum and the referendum gets winning votes from 2 out of 3, they still lose. It still loses. That's a horrible supermajority to overcome. The real issue in my mind, with respect to what the alliance has done and what the vocal critics have done, is whether a small minority, maybe a quarter of these people, will be able to hold up the will of 74.999% of the majority. So I think that whatever can be done to even up those odds, but through a brochure, through committees, is amply deserved. But my initial comment is we need to be absolutely clear, and people need to be absolutely clear what we're voting for and what we may not, and what we are not voting for.
Okay, I know this lady has been waiting for a while, so.
Dee Dowling, 50 Heritage Road. My question is, if for some reason the referendum doesn't pass and it gets more expensive, the costs rise in a few years, will we receive an assessment for those repairs that are necessary?
Not without you voting on it. So this is really to raise these funds for these improvements, and we've tried to listen through surveys of all property owners and get feedback on what's important. And we've selected these criteria that they're going to be focused on as part of this, and these funds are going to be restricted for this purpose. But the final determination, even though the CSA board and the ASPO board and the resort have all signed off on this as a group, is the property owners have said it requires 75%. There is no special assessment provision related to this. The only special assessment provision that is currently in the amendments, actually, that you'll see in conjunction with the original covenants and this amendment, is for a storm damage assessment, named storm damage assessment. That's it. So there are no funds other than these, other than what the board has already done, which is to negotiate additional gate fees. When we were looking at this number, if you will, 2 years ago, and the things that were coming before us, because we completed the stormwater assessment, I think in 2016, because that's when Matthew hit, because we were just getting that completed at that time. We were way short. We were a lot further short than we are today. That the board has done the work to work with those interests that have a say in what the gate fees go to increase the gate fees. And we anticipate that contribution from that agreement through those entities and those folks agreements is going to generate about a little over $1 million of this before. So think about that. We were in a position of today at 2.6 to 2.8 million of needed funds. Then it would have been 3.8, 3.9. So this is the last step. This isn't the first step. All of these things have been done. We're going to referendum. We're asking the property owners who have the right to make this determination to vote, and it takes 75% of those ballots cast. Back to Lee.
Thanks, Brett. Is this one? Yeah. Just a comment. People are talking about the alliance as if we have a two-party system in Sea Pines, and we don't. We have, last I checked, we still have majority rules, and the board gets elected by the majority of the homeowners that vote. So we've had elections year after year, and the highest vote getters are on the board, and that seems to be what the majority of the homeowners want, or we would have alliance members on the board. So of course the board, which represents the people that elected them, is going to be in favor of this referendum, which they should be. And the alliance is clear to do whatever they want, but to make the suggestion that they should have access to the same information that the board has doesn't make any sense to me. We elected the board, and I stand behind them, and I support the referendum. Would I like to not see my fee go up? Sure. I don't think there's anybody in this room that wants to pay more. But I lived in a community in Pennsylvania before I moved down here in 2013, and I was on the board. In fact, I was the board chair for a while. It's about the fifth the size of of Sea Pines, about 1,100 owners, and our fee was about $2,500 a year. And when I went to closing on my house and they said the fee is $1,000, and I said, is that a quarter? And they said, no, that's annual. And I said, how can you run a organization the size of CSA with all the roads and the open space and everything on $1,000 a year? So do I want to pay more? No. Do I see the need to pay more? Absolutely. And unless somebody votes in a different board, I support this board and what they've brought forward.
Thank you. First, do we have any more? I want to make sure we address that.
There was a question, and I'm not sure if anybody's here that can answer this, but it's about how many homes in Sea Pines are considered problem properties?
Alex?
Hi, Alex Cruden. I'm a founding member of the Land Use Management Committee. There were, last year, 2018, our land use monitor, then Dave Risk, addressed approximately 133 complaints. These range from small apparent infractions to things such as 40 Sand Fiddler, which was a ruin. Almost all of these were fairly small problems, and almost all of them, well over 90%, were resolved with a single contact between the land use monitor and the homeowner. The committee currently has approximately 7 real problem properties that we're dealing with. Some of those have been resolved successfully, and they're off the list. A few get added, but those are about the numbers that we're dealing with.
Okay. Let's go here, then back to Michael, then back up to Christopher. And then I'm going to call it, but I'll be here.
Dick Penfold from Heritage Villas. Just a simple question.
Sure.
We're having this referendum. Are the covenants going to be fixed so we don't have to do this again in 5 years? Or do every time you want to go through an increase in our assessments that's more than what they are now, are we going to be having to do another 75% passage rate to?
Yes, that's correct.
So we're going to have to do it again? And
Well, it depends on how things go, obviously. We're thinking we're addressing, if the community comes to the board and to make some other determinations that need to be examined, we'll probably go through the same process of feedback and collection. But in the end, it's any changes to the assessment to raise funds is the communities. It's through the residential property owners and the agreement by the resort.
I have no problem with the board doing how they spend the money and everything else, but it seems ridiculous that we'd have to go back through this same thing in 5 years if we need another $100 a year increase in our fees.
If I may, and maybe Lee, you might want to speak to this because I know you're on the governance committee, but and Michael's back there, maybe he should speak to this, but there is a subcommittee of the governance committee looking at covenants and determining from a governance perspective. We know that there's some things that ought to change. 10 years ago, for a referendum to have failed by 118 votes that received 71% of this community's support, it's just a shame that that didn't occur. Well, the only way to allow that to occur is to change the covenants to a lower percentage. That too would require a referendum, a vote, for us to change it from its current 75 to say 2/3 or whatever the right 50. I don't know what the right number is, but governance is taking that up. And there also be some changes that come out of the land use committee that would again be required to be voted on to allow us some stronger enforcement mechanisms. So I do expect there's going to be another referendum that will be not dealing with finance, but will dealing with things that involve governance, enforcement, And updating a set of covenants was written back in 1974. So you're right. But in the interim, if nothing changes and you can't carry a modification or amendment to the current covenants, 5 years go by, 7 years go by, CPI is not enough to keep up with escalating costs. Some board and the residents at that time are going to be faced with this same challenge.
Okay, we were going to Michael and then back
Two-
up to Christopher.
Two quick points. First, earlier on, I used a neighbor's or a friend's name, and I shouldn't have, and I apologize to Terry. And she has reminded me, she is not a member of the Alliance, and while she doesn't always agree with the board, she is an independent voter, and she truly is independent in lots of ways. My second point, I guess, is both Charlie and Mark used the term transparency, which we need more of. And I'll use just as an example, Lee made a point about how we get to vote on the board every year. I come to every board meeting every time you guys meet. I've heard, other than raising their hands and saying yes or no, I hear nothing from what those board members say. I don't know what they believe. I don't know the direction they want to take us. And I'll use as an example the two special meetings we had last week to discuss the terms of the referendum. You both boards met, established a quorum, went behind closed doors and met for 30 minutes and talked. Now, there wasn't any legal discussion. There wasn't any personnel discussion. I don't think there was any contractual discussion. That was a governance debate. And I don't know what you guys debated. I don't know what the issues were. I don't know how any board members felt about any of those issues. And it'd be a lot easier to support the boards if they were more open instead of doing things like that to approve contracts and then tell us, well, you can't see the contract because our policy is not to release contracts. You know, transparency means being able to see what the board does, and sometimes that's messy. And I'm a good example of why it's messy, and I'm sorry. I hope I'm at least respectful.
I would say to that end, and Michael and Lee, who are two members of the governance committee, that too is being taken up. The policy of CSA as it relates to contracts, the type of things that you're properly reflecting as to what occurred in terms of approval has been how this entity has functioned. And Michael's committee is taking a look at whether that's the proper standard by which we should go forward.
Let me just make one comment to that. Great. What's come out of the governance committee is we are very much aware of a feeling of distrust of the people you elected to represent you. I'll say this again, in 5.5 years, I have been accused of being in the pocket, along with my fellow colleagues, of the resort. We do everything the resort asks us to do. Well, in 5.5 years, the resort has never asked us to do anything except the hotel agreement. That's the only thing that's ever come before this board about a request from the resort. And that request was pulled away. So those of us who sometimes become a little defensive because we're in the pocket of an organization that's never asked us to do anything, the theme of our governance committee is simply this: trust, which we are trying to gain from our constituents, should be the byproduct of good governance. And we are looking at best practices of the board that will create the actions we take that will give us the byproduct we want you to feel comfortable with when you pick up the ballot and you elect 1, 2, or 3 people every year to represent you. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, up to Christopher.
Thank you. Sorry, I'd just like to say one very short thing, only because Dennis mentioned me by name. I think that was inappropriate. I just want to say that I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that every stakeholder in Sea Pines should be asked to put their hand in the pocket. That's my only request, other than to ask the board to publish a revised 7-year forecast and to please consider redirecting the gallery shops redevelopment funds to the infrastructure funds. I don't think they're unreasonable requests, and I really do not like being labeled as being part of a negative group and being opposed to everything. That is not my position, and I'm an independent spirit, as Charlie will endorse.
I agree.
And so I'm my own individual, and my objective is just to help you communicate and help people understand the issues around points, not to be a barrier to progress.
Yeah, and just I do want to address the 7-year. The intention today, and we've had various forms, and the form could change a little bit because we used to do a 3-year and we would review that and publish that. We're now doing a 7-year, and my intention is to publish it every year, and it revises every year, just like our other plans for operations and budgets. As I mentioned earlier, everything is approved annually, okay, for the forward-coming year, and that's the intention. Okay, I'm gonna call it. I'm here. I don't know if anybody else is, but I'll be here.